I actually wanted to talk about the flood, Noah's flood. I think there's some good evidence for it. So first of all, geological evidence. Have you guys ever heard of Mount St. Helens eruption?
Yes, I have.
Erupted in the 80s. Is that the eruption you're talking about?
Yep. We saw fossils created within hours. There's a mini Grand Canyon was carved from a mudslide within 9 hours.
Deep canyon, over 140 feet deep. It might appear that this river eroded this canyon one sand grain at a time over maybe thousands of years, but it didn't happen that way at all. We know from the historic reports and the photographic documentation that this canyon was breached in a single day by the mud flow of March 19th, 1982.
Geological columns laid with rocks, ash. There was upside down trees laid in volcanic rock, like a lot of our sites where we figure are millions of years old. The flood explains how fossil fuels were laid. But what we see with the geological column and the fossils, everything we see that you guys associate with evolution or billion-year-old planet can all be explained by the flood.
What refutes a global flood? Mathematics. There isn't enough water.
According to the Bible, it rained as well as it came from the earth, sprung up from the earth. The Russians dug an 8-mile hole. It's the deepest hole on earth. You know what they found down there? Take a guess.
You tell me.
It was water. A whole bunch of water down there. So the deepest that we've ever dug in the earth, we hit water. Right? And they were shocked. They're like, we didn't know that was there. So the fact that the Bible says, are you telling me the earth can't hold that water? Is that your position? Land animals mixed with sea creatures all over the planet. On mountains, they found hundreds of jellyfish in pristine condition. How old is limestone? How's limestone formed scientifically? How does that work?
That's irrelevant.
Really close look at this fossil. Is there anything wrong with it? Does that resemble a human footprint? This is limestone. Look it up. Limestone is 70 to 120 million years old, and yet there's a human footprint in limestone.
4.5 billion years old, and we know that because we've actually done science on it.
They gave dates of 2.4 million years. This is for a 10-year-old rock. Now, Mount St. Helens highlighted that we shouldn't blindly trust the dates given by radiometric dating.
So given those facts, everything we see that you guys associate with evolution or billion-year-old planet can all be explained by the flood. Go look it all up. We saw fossils created within hours.
Fossils can be caused by cataclysmic events. That's not something that's not known.
Land animals mixed with sea creatures all over the planet, on mountains.
One of the most interesting things about that June 12, 1980 pumice flow deposit is it formed essentially in 3 hours.
Yeah. We found trillions of fossils globally, right? We found the creatures mixed side by side.
That's not evidence for a global flood. We have an explanation for finding fossils globally.
How can a handprint be in sandstone that's older than a dinosaur footprint?
Look at radiometric dating, for instance. They've done experiments. Radiometric dating is unable to date known.
Right, Rick, I've muted you again. You talked about limestone formation. We don't need to hear about the methodologies that are involved. Which authorities are you going to get this information from?
Anybody who has ever been to any kind of college for a science degree knows that anybody can get a PhD.
Right.
You don't know anything by having 10 guys tell you something. See, that's the thing. You accept it in faith. I don't.
Rick, which authorities?
The resource I'm using is my brain. You want me to say which one of your lords am I citing? That's what you want me to say.
We don't need to hear about the methodologies that are involved. Which authorities?
Waiting to be told what to think, which is what I hear quite a bit, that we're dogmatic, that we're waiting to be told by the next expert or whatever like that.
Happened is not this individual studied the science and learned what the science says about the age of the earth and these things. All they did was listen to a propaganda merchant to say this and this and this and this and this, which is why it's so easy to poke holes in this.
A flood is far more plausible than the stretched imagination that you call literate science, right? The oxidization of the planet. So we know that there was 35% more oxygen on our planet one time. We know this basically because of the insects and the size that they grew to.
Historic times, Earth's atmosphere was 30% oxygen. During that time, insects were much, much larger. Dragonflies were the size of hawks, while some spiders were the size of small birds.
The flood describes complete vegetation wipeout, which would explain perfectly how our oxidization went down, as well as the lifespan of humans.
Higher oxygen level, you'd notice you have much more energy. The human endurance records of today would quickly be shattered after everyone gets more oxygen in them.
You'd also be more alert. More oxygen in your body improves your circulation and increases your energy. Humanity would see much less disease. A type of infection-fighting immune cells known as neutrophils would occur more often, keeping you healthier. You'd get a lot fewer colds.
We know from hyperbaric chambers that humans can rejuvenate, and actually our cells actually tend to go backwards. And then after the flood, the age started to decline. The point I'm trying to make is that I hear you guys constantly saying the flood has been disproven by science, but that's not the truth at all. The fact is we got to meet in the middle. Then we got to ask ourselves what's more logical. And in my opinion, and really like the honest opinion, a flood is far more plausible. The pyramids and the Sphinx, 4,500 years old. The oldest human script we have, Sumerians, 5,000 years old. Oldest mummified corpse we have, 5,000 years old. Oldest clothing item, 5,000 years old. The oldest holy site we found rapidly buried.
There are plenty of Christians who are scientifically literate enough to understand that the Great Flood never occurred.
The nail in the coffin is the oldest tree on Earth, 5,000 years old. How do you explain the oldest tree on Earth is 5,000 years old from an evolutionary standpoint?
Trees have existed well before humans. Their first appearance as we know them today occurring an estimated 485 million years ago.
How does it demonstrate anything about a flood or the age of the Earth? How is that tree relevant?
Because that tree is dated to the exact period that a flood was supposedly said to have wiped out
You're not listening.
Your studies show something that wasn't suspected at all, and that is that the older a tree gets, it functions more vigorously than ever.
What difference does it make if the oldest tree is 4,500 years old?
Because trees don't stop growing, Matt.
Biological immortality that certain trees have. Some scientists argue that kept in ideal conditions, a tree could in fact live forever. But at this point, nobody knows for sure.
Trees stop growing. I've got dead trees in my yard right now. Why don't you come down and tell them that they don't stop growing?
See, you're contorting, though, right?
I'm not contorting. I'm not contorting.
Most tree deaths are from numerous outside causes, including mineral deficiencies in the soil, disease, traumatic events such as lightning strikes, and unfavorable change in climate.
How does that demonstrate that there was a flood just prior to that?
That is, part of a tree could be completely dead, while the other part survives a traumatic event, such as a lightning strike. There's no centralized organ a tree needs, such as a brain or heart, that would kill it if a certain part of it is damaged, because all of its necessary functions are decentralized. In this vein, the vascular system of a tree is also sectored, allowing undamaged parts of the tree to flourish when other parts may become damaged or die. Another advantage a tree has is that, in very simple terms, it retains stem cells on hand after every growth cycle. They are called merismatic cells and can be used to form any part of itself that the tree deems necessary.
What does that tree's existence demonstrate?
It demonstrates either A, that the Earth is not nearly as old as you think it is, or B, that some catastrophe happened worldwide to extinguish all trees.
I'm sorry, but I'm sorry.
Trees don't have the same problems as mammals in terms of cellular contamination and seem to be generally immune to the senescence or general biological deterioration that plagues most other life on this planet. Then why do they die? The answer seems to be due to external factors more than anything else.
What the existence of that tree demonstrates is that that tree exists.
Throughout human history, every culture that we know of has flood stories.
I'm very interested in which flood you're talking about.
Yeah, all those stories, actually, you're leaving out, they all indicate a global flood, and these people are on opposite ends of the world at that. The story of the global flood is all over the world. It's all over the globe. They all have this story. So whether you want to pull is it a Christian one, or is it the Sumerian one, or is it the Mayan one, it's really irrelevant because we're talking about a global flood, right?
Also didn't know what the globe was. For them, their world was their little geographic area, right? That every single one we know of mentions a flood at some point in their history does not indicate, as Matt is saying, that it is the same worldwide global flood.
They were little isolated populations. These people got around.
No, they were little isolated populations.
The mummies, dubbed the cocaine mummies, caused a stir in the world of history and archaeology because some were eager to point out a previously unknown trade link between Egypt and the Americas. Is it possible that ancient Egypt somehow obtained cocaine and tobacco from the Americas?
The reason why I believe in the global flood is because it's scientific. The facts that we see are in line with the story of the global flood. And furthermore, I became a Christian. When I started reading the Bible and became a Christian, I said, okay, if this is true, then it's going to have to match up with not observable science, not historical or speculative science, observable science. And I went for years on this run trying to figure this all out. That's why I call you guys. It's not like one day I woke up and went, hey,
Rick,
years doing this for myself.
Rick.
That's good, Rick.
It does not match up with observable science.
You know what the word science means?
It has nothing to do with that. Like, it has everything to do with the lack of evidence. Maybe that was not the right direction to go. Let me restructure.
my brain, because that means nothing. That's not a very particularly useful resource. We don't need to hear about the methodologies that are involved. Which authorities are you going to get this information from?
And when you go file the paperwork to get your Nobel Prize, I will be laughing.